Hi everyone, I'm Ted Thomas, and I've been involved in tax liens and tax deeds for 25 years. I'm going to talk not only about tax liens and tax deeds on this, but I'm going to talk about how did lease options work, because you're going to see if you use a lease option to sell that you can generate some huge profits. So I'll give you some inside information on tax liens, I'll give you some great information on tax deeds, and before I finish, I want to talk about two big mistakes that are made at the auctions that you don't want to make. So stay tuned till the end, and I'll tell you about those mistakes because they'll save you a ton of money. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. How do lease options work? Well, first of all, investors really like the lease option once they learn about it. Now, the people that are buying tax lien properties are not buying A properties in the country club or even B properties. A lot of times they're buying C's and D's. These properties are a little used and somewhat abused. Now, those properties sell to fixer-upper people. Those properties sell to people that want to do lease options. They sell to people that might need installment payments. So the tax lien and tax defaulted business is easy to understand, but most people don't realize how lucrative it is. So I'm about to show you how lucrative it can be. For those people that don't know about it, tax liens and tax deeds have been around for 200 years. And this is the kind of business that you can do on a part-time basis and you can earn full-time money. Many people that do this will be getting checks from 5, 7, even 10 different sources within the first 2 years of doing it. So let me explain the business of tax lien certificates and tax deeds, and I can do that in a couple of sentences and do it relatively easy. So to start out with, the local government must collect property tax because the property tax pays all the bills, or the majority of the bills for the county. So in order to collect those taxes, they have the sheriff, along with the treasurer, start levying tax on property. Then they go about the business of collecting. If they can't collect it, they have a couple of options. Number one option in half of the state is they will sell a tax lien certificate. In the other half of the states, they will actually seize the property, confiscate it, and then they'll resell it at auction. So when it comes to lease options, what really is happening is people are buying at the tax defaulted auction for 10 and 20 cents on the dollar, and then they sell it for very close to retail price. Very close, but they get a higher than normal price, that's for sure. Why do they get a higher than normal price? Because they're going to offer financing, and that financing means installment payments and low down payments. So low down payments and installments are what people are looking for in lease options, at least in the tax lien and tax deed business. Now the governments, they're collecting their money at the auction. So now let's set the government aside for a second because they're going to be there and they're going to carry on that business and it's going to go for years. Now when I say it's going to go for years, what happens every year, the appraiser and the assessor are out there valuing property. They figure out all the values and then they send each one of the homeowners a bill for their share of all the bills at the county. So the county needs money. What are they going to do with that money? They're going to pay for the school teachers. They're going to pay for the police and the fire departments. So you're getting the idea. The county has a lot of bills to pay, everything from the court system to picking up the trash. Most properties don't understand that there's going to be a lot of bills for the county to pay. So in half of the states, they'll sell a tax lien certificate. When they sell a tax lien certificate, you earn money on that. You could earn 16%, 18, 24%. All right, those are income vehicles, but you don't get possession of the property. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about you're going to get possession of a property for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. You want to mark it up. So what I usually teach is mark it up. So if you got it for 20 cents on the dollar, sell it for 40 or 50 cents and collect some money. This is a different way of doing business. This is going to be, let's see if we can get top dollar for the property and accept installment payments. All right, now if you're brand new to me and you want to comment on what we're doing today, you can go ahead and comment if you want right here in the chat box. Matter of fact, if you tell me what state you're in, I'll send you a note and tell you what the interest rate on tax liens is in your state, and I'll send you a little gift with it. But let's go back to this particular episode is about how to do lease options and how do they work. So the county, they auctioned the property. So now they're rid of it. And once they're rid of it, they're happy because they've got their money, okay? That's all they wanted was their money. What did you want? Well, if you bought at a tax deed auction, you wanted to get a great deal. So try to buy it at 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. You're going to be happy. Now, I've had clients buy it for 6 and 7 cents on the dollar, but I've also been at auctions and watched people pay 95 cents on the dollar. So you want to be a bargain hunter. So do your homework, be a savvy investor, buy properties for 10 and 20 cents on the dollar. You don't necessarily have to sell them for 20 cents on the dollar. You can sell those properties for 75, 80, and 90 cents on the dollar by using what's called a lease option, which is nothing more than selling the property with installments, small down payments and installments. People that can make installments, they do it again and again and again. They rarely lose the property, most of the payments they make. If they don't continue paying, you just get the property back and do it again. All right, so a simple lease option can be done on every property that's sold at a tax defaulted auction. All right, now who do you sell them to? Well, the credit bureaus will tell you that 25, even 35% of all the buyers have low credit scores. In other words, their credit ratings are low, so they can't go to the bank. Well, they can go to the bank, but the bank will tell them no. So this solves that problem for those people that have bad credit score. They can still buy, but they have to do it in like a rent to own. So what they do is they give you a small down payment, and then they give you regular installments. Now keep in mind, at tax auctions, you're going to buy C and D properties. You're probably not going to get too many A's. Now, I wish you luck. If you get an A, that's great. More power to you. But what happens is people see the A properties and they bid them up too high. Very hard to make money. But they might get an A property at a nice discount that they want to live in. Now, there's thousands of properties going to be auctioned, so you're going to get to pick and choose. Nationwide, there's 5,000 auctions every year. So there's going to be plenty of time to do that. So lease option is nothing more than a rental agreement where the people are paying, except now the people are going to pay their own taxes and they're going to pay their own upkeep. So it's going to be a little bit more than just a rental agreement. I hope you're getting the idea. So this is pretty simple. People make a down payment, then they make installment payments, and after a period of time, they will have purchased the property. Now, what happens to you? Well, number one, you're going to make a great profit because if you bought at 20 cents on the dollar and now you could sell it for 80 cents on the dollar, you're going to do quite well. Now, if you get payments, you're going to get interest on your money. Now, how much interest are you going to get? Well, it can be a big number. At the banks, people are buying with 3 or 4% loans. You can easily rent at 9 and 10%. So you can rent your money, in other words, whatever the price of the property is, you can rent that money at 9 and 10%. So you're going to make a lot better. So you're going to make a lot more money. It's not unusual for people to make a 40, 50, and 80% profit on the property and make 100% on the financing itself. Okay, so now you have a general idea of how the lease option works, and they certainly do. I have many clients that do it, and other videos will go into it more in depth. Now, I promised a couple of things, and I'll get to those mistakes in just a minute, but first I want to do a couple of questions. Well, the easiest way to sell a tax property, the question was, are there other ways than using the lease option? Of course, you could just do an outright sale, but if you're buying B and C properties, you might want to think, who are you going to sell it to? So you're probably going to sell it to fixer-upper people or people that can repair it and whatever. So they're going to ask for a little bit of discount. So with those people, what I do is I buy it low, say 20 cents on the dollar, and then I'll sell it for 40 or 50 cents on the dollar just to move it out. Or if you want to be a person that does a fix-up and go all the way for the 100 cents on the dollar, you could do that. Now, what media should you use? I would immediately go to Craigslist. I would do eBay. I would do all the electronic sites, including Facebook and whatever, to sell the property. Okay, what happens if the lease option buyer doesn't pay? Well, they haven't bought anything. They're just doing a rent to own from you is all they're doing. You don't sign the property over to them. You own the property until they pay you. And what they call that in the real estate world is a deed for contract or cash for contract. So what they can do, or cash for deed even. So they can give you cash when they've paid all the payments and fulfilled the contract after 5 or 10 years, then they get the house and they get the deed. You never passed anything for them. If they don't pay you, you just kick them out like you would in an ordinary rental agreement. Okay, so let's go on to those two big mistakes. Big mistake number one is people don't look at the property. All right, so if you don't look at a property, you shouldn't bid at the auction. Why shouldn't you bid? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. If you haven't seen it, hadn't had boots on the ground, you got a big problem on your hands. Because what if there was a hurricane last night? What if there was a big windstorm? What if there was a fire? There could be any of those things could happen, and the property could be destroyed. Unfortunately for you, the county is selling as is, and they might not give you your money back. So you don't want to be one of those investors that hasn't looked at the property. That's a really big mistake. Second biggest mistake is similar, except now people go to the auction and maybe someone got the property they wanted, so they're going to pick another one they want. Well, if you haven't seen it, you don't want to bid on that, but you certainly don't want to bid if you don't have an exit strategy already planned, because people will start bidding to win. They're anxious. They want something good to happen. But what if you bid too high? Well, you only know whether you bid too high if you have an exit strategy. So those are two big mistakes. Okay, hopefully you've learned a lot. If you have, well, I have more for you. And what I have is I have a free gift, actually, that I'm going to pass on to you. And it's called a Safe Haven. It's a home study course, which I'm willing to give to you. I said I'm going to give it to you, but what you have to do is go below and register.